All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. And today I have the privilege and honor of interviewing Jarrett Ross. He's the founder and vice president of Virginia Dent, as well as a few other companies. So thanks so much for Jarrett for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, James.
So first off, really, what's the story of your business and how you got started?
Well, I started out as a paint guy right out of the Air Force and as a logistics specialist. I fell in love with the challenges of the car business. Typically, I mean, when it boils down to is the car business is a logistical business. So it kind of fit everything I learned in the Air Force. So I grasped that challenge and I was working for someone. Eventually, got out of paint, started doing dent work, and every step of the way, everything we did, my wife included, when getting out of the Air Force was an act of faith. Leaving, starting a business that I didn't know anything about, doing paint work on cars. I was trained, built a customer base. That was a challenge I enjoyed. And we moved into doing dents and it started growing. My brother came on. We started my brother-in-law. We've got several members of the family that are in the business and we've been very successful and blessed to be where we are.
That's awesome. We were talking earlier about kind of a question more related to how you got into PDR. It's kind of an interesting story. So, I mean, what got you? You mentioned you were in paint, you're in the Air Force. I'm sure we could talk a lot about that, but what kind of prompted you to move into the PDR side?
Well, one, just the sheer wow factor of seeing a dent disappear. Anyone that's ever seen one just go away without anything touching it because the tool's behind the panel, your first time, it's like, wow, it blows your mind. Well, it blew my mind. But just so happened that I had customers that were using a company that had paints and dents, and eventually they liked they liked me. They really wanted to bring me in, but they were like, "You need to get a dent truck, man. We really love to have you." And so through some research and everything, I just ended up falling in love with the path of where that was taking me, and I guess God had those plans already written for me. So when I ended up committing to going to dent school, I quit my job. My wife quit her job. Both of us doing very well with two children, young children at that,
Yeah.
and moved 2.5 hours back home to start Virginia Dent, and that was scary. That was very scary. It was, I think, it's the entrepreneurial spirit, the challenge, and then testing my faith was a part of it as well. And some of the customers that I had in doing paints kind of rolled over into doing dents. So even though I started in Richmond, went to Roanoke, wanted to start the dent business, and ended up back in Richmond where I did that. So always honored contracts I had with employers that I had. I never really learned PDR from anyone else. I went and learned it on my own, went to school and did it the right way.
You mentioned going to school, and I think this story we talked about earlier might actually relate to a lot of people who are kind of afraid to step out toward their goal, toward their dream. But you've got a kind of an interesting story how you did that. Would you mind diving into a little bit more of how you were kind of successful in your job, and then you decided to go all in on PDR? Earlier, you talked about how you were kind of nervous about that, and then at some point you felt better. Can you kind of talk more about that?
Yeah, I like to talk about that. Some of me a little bit emotional. So, when you have two kids in a family that you love and faith that is undeniable and your entrepreneurial spirit, that's a really volatile mix for someone who wants to achieve something. Because you're pulled in so many different directions. So when I made the choice to go into PDR, my wife and I were doing very well in Roanoke. Together, we were making over six figures at 28 years old. Why would a 28-year-old and a 25-year-old want to quit that? I was friends with our pastor. We were doing great, a great customer base. We were very successful. But when I really wanted to go into to start this PDR business, we went ahead and sacrificed and moved back home, 2.5 hours back home. I flew to Kansas, got there, and I didn't even have time to move anything out of the moving truck. My brother literally took me when a moving truck backed up. He took me straight to the airport. I flew out to dent school in Kansas.
Hmm.
When I got there, I was scared to death that, I realized on the cab ride to the hotel what I had done. It's probably about midnight when I check into the hotel, and school starts the next morning at 8 a.m. And I realized, wow, suddenly we're not making any money. We went from over six figures to nothing in a matter of one day by choice, which scared me but I kept believing that this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. I just kept believing it. Got to the hotel room and turned the TV on, and Joel Osteen was speaking. I'd never seen him speak before. Sat on the end of the bed, hadn't even taken my shoes off yet. And I'm listening to the story about, and this story is the root of my success. And this everything that goes into growing your harvest is really faith. It is. It's faith. We don't bless ourselves. So I hear this story about a man who wanted a beautiful garden. And if you wanted to parallel that well in my life, I wanted to have a beautiful business, right? Well, this guy wanted this beautiful garden months and months and months. He went out there and prayed over his backyard, asking God for a beautiful garden. Well, he got frustrated. God wasn't doing it for him. So he decided to go out there and tear the rocks out and the thorns and the brush and clean it all up, rake it out, bring in topsoil, do all the stuff you needed to do, planted everything. And months later, this lady had been walking her dog across back and forth over this road over his yard, elevated above his yard. And one day he's out there and she stopped and she said, and this guy had been praying for a beautiful garden. And she stopped one day and she never spoke to this guy before. And she said, excuse me, sir. She said, I just want to tell you, I've been walking by your yard. I've been walking by here for years. And she said, I just want to tell you, you certainly have been blessed with a beautiful garden. And I realized at that moment that I was actually tearing out those rocks and those thorns. I was in the middle of reconstructing my yard. And I knew that someone was going to come along one day and tell me that beautiful garden. And I knew I was on the right path. So I was the first one to school, the last one to leave. I slept good that night. I stayed that way. They opened the school for me on Saturday and Sunday because I was not going to fail. And when I got home, I was blessed that some customers that I hadn't serviced in over 2 years welcomed me with open arms and had good experience doing business with myself. So they wanted to offer the dent services to me. So I started off with a handful of accounts of old customers that had turned friends, willing to give me that opportunity. And from there, the snowball started rolling. And my brother was graduated from VMI in 96, and he was like, "You made what?" I didn't go to college. I went to Air Force Community College, is about it. I tried VCU for a little while. School wasn't for me. My brother got the brains. I tell him I got the looks, whatever. But yeah, we love to play around with each other like that. But Jason learned dance in an unusually fast way. He has a gift. He came on, learned how to do it, and I just kept getting customers, and so I started giving half of what I had to my brother. I gave half of what I had to the next guy, and I just never stopped shaking hands and saying hi. And I was giving it up. And when I did that, I was afraid, but I always look back at the sacrifice I made when I left everything we had to go start that school. So I was thinking, if God didn't fail me right then, that He was not going to fail me by me giving half of this to one of my guys. Now, I'm sure I make a little bit of money off of what I gave up, but when you go from making 100% of what you're making to a smaller percentage of what you're making, you're going forward and backwards more. So I was driven to keep going and driving, and eventually, we ended up with 7, 8 dent guys, and a family business, and it's going very well. My wife does the books. So there you are. I mean, here we are today. We're celebrating 25 years in business here in a few short months.
Wow.
And, I don't know how to do it yet, but I really feel responsible I feel like I owe a lot of very close people in my inner circle a celebration.
Yeah, that's awesome. You talked a little bit about this. What's kind of something that you love most about this business, or maybe what's most exciting about PDR?
The most exciting thing about PDR, I go back to what I said the first time I saw it didn't go away and there was nothing touching it, because like the tools behind the panel. Of course, that's what I saw the first time. They're glue pointing things now. Just still pretty amazing to see a customer's reaction, even if they're still. I don't mind. Back when I started, I was like white knuckles on the tools and scared to death somebody would see me working, and I was so afraid that I was going to mess the crowd. I didn't want anybody near me. Now I welcome customers to watch me. Some of them want to respect and give me room. But I'm like, no, stay right here with me. My wife says I'm like an evangelist, and I think that's a beautiful way for me to connect with people. And I think that's more important than fixing dents in my life. It is. So it's an opportunity for me to share my faith with someone. And it's really neat because there's a lot more people out there. There are many, many more people out there that are on the edge. You don't know what's going on in their life. And this is just a beautiful thing. It's not just about dents, but when you make something vanish like that, you can really kind of associate that with Christ dying on the cross. Our sins vanish, just like the dents. It's just beautiful. The money's good. The money's really good, but you have to be good at what you do in anything to make the money. Thankfully, we've always been on the front edge of tool technology. We're usually the first ones to get the newest thing out. We always share information amongst one another. We have a huge network of people out there that if we have a question, we always have a resource. We're surrounded by some really good people. But the thing that gets me really excited about PDR is just the reaction that people have after our interaction. That's just leaving there and feeling joy in the heart, and also the happiness of seeing someone's expression when they see it, because they don't see it every day. Dealerships, there's not much appreciation in it because it's like robotics. It's just like a manufacturing line. Nothing's new. When you deal one-on-one with someone, like yesterday, my son, Dylan, my youngest son, did a job at the Virginia State Police. We do all their work. And one of the troopers was stuck having to pay for two creases about 2 feet long, and he was going to pay for it out of his pocket. Well, I'm so proud of Dylan because he actually did the job. Basically a retail price job. But because this man serves our community, this wasn't coached to him. This is just something that is natural for all of us in this business, in our company anyway. Dylan charged him less than wholesale just because. And he didn't care about the money. He was blown away with what he saw happen to his cruiser.
Yeah.
The were gone, the creases were gone. And Dylan called me last night to tell me that. There's so much fulfillment. 3 people were fulfilled right then. And that's what's beautiful about this. And saving a customer a tremendous amount of money and time by them not having to take the car to a body shop and then it being done in a conventional way, which normally costs two or three times more than our process. And it takes a fraction of the time. This is a very fulfilling career.
That's awesome.
And we get stories like that all the time. I've had women didn't want their husband to see the dent. Please don't, I put a dent in my car.
Yeah.
I've had it the other way around too. Man, I don't want my wife to see me. I'm so particular about my car. I put a dent in her car. I need it fixed now, right away. I don't want her to see it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, man. It's beautiful. I've gotten hugs, high fives, letters. We don't push our reviews very often. We just never have. We'll start doing that.
Was there something that you faced growing from being a PDR tech to running it more?
That's a good question. I say we, I always include my wife in this because she's always done administrative and the books, accounts payable and accounts receivable, that kind of stuff. I'm my own secretary. I'm my own scheduler. I'm my own call responder. I'm everything. Scheduler and repairman, everything when I started the business. So that's kind of hard because when it takes a lot up of your attention. I'm ADHD, so for me, that was tough. Probably most dent guys are. That's probably why we love doing dents, because you get so into something that it keeps you patient and your attention, it pulls it. Starting from doing PDR and all of that considered, and when my brother came on and then we started adding and I was going out, I found that sales was a niche I had that I didn't know I had. And I drew from that experience from an earlier job I had in driving a beer truck, of all things. And I wanted to sell as much beer to the grocery store or the convenience store I could, right? There was a little crumbs out of that experience that I was able to use in sales and doing this. And the logistics experience in the Air Force gave me the experience on how to navigate through some of the challenges that even the dealership internally struggle with. And so I found myself making friends with a lot of these managers and just listening to what they were saying and try to help them problem solve for themselves. I would just, share, listen and share. And sometimes you develop friendships. And that's another part of the whole business that I love. So basically, we just duplicated that throughout the process. And as we opened up these other businesses, I have pushed less metal and done more PR and that sort of stuff. And we do really well because of the people that we have in the business. I take a lot of pride in it. And because we duplicated what I started doing, it's turned out to be a good system. And I'll tell you this, and I think a lot of businesses should do this too. And I think it probably this segues into another question. Maybe I'll come back around to that when you ask.
But what were you thinking there?
Well, it's got a little bit of secret sauce stuff, but I'll reveal it because I think it's important in any career in any business. And I've shared it with a friend of mine that owned two body shops that sold out to a large franchise. Now, he was in business for 20 some years, had two large body shops, one of them doing $500,000 a month. And so he's legit. And we play golf together. And so I'm telling him about this secret sauce part about seeing my newest people are the ones that do the training for the newest guy. And the reason I do that, and that goes for anybody. So I could give anybody out there with a business some advice. Consider this. Would you want a veteran in your company that's been with your company doing what they do for years to start braking every day? I'm talking about if this is a vehicle moving down the road, tapping the brake and slowing their progress down to pour into someone that they don't know when they've got more value than to the company that's ahead of them and they're slowing down. There's a lot of wisdom to share, but my theory, and I think it probably came from when I was in the Air Force because they did this in my field. The newest guy that had moved up a step or moved up a rank or had just freshly learned their trade, that fella or that girl, person, tech, however you want to term it, is the one that trains the new, fresh, brand new green person that comes in. And there's a good reason why. And I've seen it work for years. It's because that fresh information that's just been learned is learned all over again when it comes out and they share it with somebody. Kind of brings it full circle.
Yeah.
And then they realize when they have a question about something, they don't want to tell someone wrong. They want to mentor correctly and help someone that just came in who's obviously at work nervous because they started a new job. They left something somewhere. And so they want to succeed. So it's really important for the person doing the training to take a lot of pride in sharing what they learned. And that's what I find is that it creates this excitement and someone gives them responsibility. As a young person in the company, that's a lot of responsibility, but it's also an uplifting one. You're giving them something important to do. At the same time, everything's really fresh right there, and they haven't developed bad habits yet because they just learned all the good ones and they give it to them. And then, as they learn, they're the next ones that do the training. And every time we've done that, we have turned out, everyone has come out polished and beautiful. And I love it because the guy that's doing the training is not sure about something. That person's going to go up to the person that trained them and ask them so they can tell the next guy correctly.
Yeah,
they can go anywhere you go. My friend that sold his two body shops had never, ever considered doing that. And he was like, how did I miss that? So I knew I was onto something when I heard a guy like that of his statue tell me that. It was pretty neat.
that makes sense. I mean, from military background myself, thinking about that, thinking how my son's done that in the Marine Corps, he moved up a little bit, then he became the trainer.
Mhm.
In the Navy which I was in, the newest person is now training the next person.
Isn't that great?
You do have some older people, more experienced people training too, but most of the training is that next person. I mean, flight training, it's like, okay, you just got qualified, and okay, now you're going to train. That's where you build a lot of your hours. So it makes perfect sense.
Well, as you get more hours in flight time, you also get more experience in training. It all works beautiful like that.
Yeah.
And I never understood why other companies, body shops that were our customers, and I really understood why they had a guy who's, 30 years in the business training somebody who's been in the business a week. No, your productivity stops. And a lot of times, what happens is it affects that person in a way where a lot of those type of people are on commissions or on flat rate or something, and that interrupts their flow of generating their own income, and unless they're offered training pay, in which case we do that anyway. So not only is our young trainer getting a little extra money for training the new guy, that's a benefit for that new guy because a lot of times they're still trying to build up their account base, and so that's another way that they can make a little money.
That's good.
I mean, that's just not for me. It was just natural to do it that way. What was the question?
No, that's good. So what do you think the future of PDR is for people like that, either thinking about a career there or growing their own business?
People thinking about getting into PDR?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, these days, it's a lot harder than it used to be, just because there are more there are more techs in the world doing PDR, and the ones that are kind of not on their way out, aging out. There's a generation there that is able to absorb new technology, new ways, and there are several fellows out there. Bryce Kelly is comes to mind first, who is pushing his Central Florida dent repair. The guy's amazing. He does a great job advertising, and his repairs are incredible. He's partly involved in creating these ways to relieve tension in metal. It is carrying our repair process into a higher level, that worse damage. So it's harder for a tech to come in and start their own business in PDR now. But if they want to just get into a work for someone, typically I think training runs around. I mean, I'm not sure. I haven't checked the prices lately, but some schools are somewhere around $35,000. So it's a legit commitment.
Yeah.
Then you got to figure out how you're going to make money after you pay that and get your tools. And it's expensive venture. So we do things a little bit different where I don't want to reveal too much, but we are very flexible with how we do things with our people that come in. And it's a tough field to crack,
Yeah.
to get into, but it's doable.
Yeah.
Say find a very reputable school or a very reputable company that's looking for someone. We typically recruit the people that we take in because it takes a really special person to be successful at this. But typically, my business is mostly family. So, I mean, I didn't have to recruit very far. I didn't have to look very far. But someone coming into the business new, it takes a large commitment, and it takes probably you have to have enough money set aside to at least pay your bills for a year.
Hmm.
As we joke around and say, after a year, you're just dangerous enough to mess a car up because you start getting a little bit cocky and you do something you're not qualified to do. And then you get yourself in trouble. And then anyone else starting a business, period, any business, I think anytime you go into anything new, you're really going to have to go into it. You have to question your faith. What are your, like, what's your motives?
Hmm.
Uh, and then when you understand what is the direction you want to go, no matter what field it's in, I think you have to step out on faith because you're leaving something behind. And I believe that if you really just, you got to put your head down and work hard. In this world, there are more people in it. There are more people entering into the painless dent repair field. There are more people into most fields that anyone wants to go into business in. And you're going to have to compete against others. So the best thing for you to do is do your homework, make sure that you set your LLC up or your sub S corporation, get with your tax guy, make sure you're doing it the right way. There's a lot of behind the scenes things. Make sure you have a support system, someone to do your books and everything else. Because if you're the book doer and the PDR guy and the receptionist and the scheduler, everything, you got a choice to make. Do you want to work for yourself or do you want to run a business? There's forks in the road you're going to come to and decisions you have to make. But it's a huge commitment and it's one that's very doable. But it really boils down to drive. How much faith do you have? Really having a heart to serve.
A lot of good insights there. And you kind of already started going down this path, but
So,
any advice that you would give to a PDR business or other small business?
I'll diversify, definitely diversify. And I'll say this, if you look at, take for instance, course, when I was 18, 19 years old, before I ever went in the Air Force, I worked for a printing company. And one day these guys came in suits.
Hmm.
This is a very reputable printing, very big printing company. It was 24/7 operation. Did big jobs like printed McDonald's fry boxes, Marlboro cigarette carton box,
Oh,
those things.
oh,
So big company. Guys come in their suits one day and we're like, who are these guys? It was Coors, the Coors Corporation. They were coming in to buy a printing company. 18, 19 years old. I'm 55 years old now. So if a big company like that was diversifying then, you see where I'm going with this? I mean, Philip Morris made cigarettes forever. They own, I believe they own Kraft. They're in the cheese business. I just believe that even if you're not this multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar company, if they're doing that, then there's something right about it. I mean, they're successful. In my eyes, I'm thinking I kind of want to keep my eyes open for opportunities that I can kind of bring in. We had a customer come to us one day. They were subletting their detail department. And this is where it really gets good. And we had been servicing them for, I don't know, a couple of years. And I didn't even know the detailers were a sublet company. I didn't even know it. I just knew some of the guys and we're there every single day. Very big company. They approached me one day. We're there every single day. They approached me one day and asked me to take over their detail business. I didn't have any interest in it at all. I just said flat out, no way. I don't want to do that. The next day, same question. The next day, same guy, same question. And this went on for about a week. And I realized, man, what's going on? I was like, what's going on up there? What's the problem? And he said that the owner of the company had gone AWOL. Something happened to him. Don't know. He's okay now, but he'd gone AWOL and the employees weren't getting paid and they were going to quit showing up and that was going to kill their productivity. It's domino effect, right? They just asked me to please go up there and look at taking over. So we had just started a paint business, added on the paint part of it. And there's a fellow that came to us and he wanted a shirt tail on our Virginia Dent business with our wholesale accounts. And so we had worked all that out. We'd just done that. So we diversified over into paints. Well, here's this guy asking me about doing his detail. And I realized that I captured him in a moment where he was kind of desperate. So I'll tell you what, finally I told him, you give us the paint business and we'll tackle it. And he didn't like that. Later I found out he was trying to give his paint business to one of his buddies. Um, but he was so desperate, he said, okay, fine. So we went up there that weekend. They opened up the doors and we threw all the trash away, painted the walls. We did everything, got that place. I wanted a total change of atmosphere for those guys and show them that they're with a company that means business. I wanted to give them an atmosphere at work where they were happy to come to work and not dreading coming to work. When they walked in, it's bright, it's beautiful, their tools are great, their environment's nice. They got uniforms from us, those type of things. You know what I mean? I just want it to be first class for the employees as well,
Yeah.
not just the company. I want my guys to take a lot of pride in what they're doing, and it starts with how they look and the tools that they use. I don't want them. I just wanted the best for them, and it caught on. This big dealership that has 24 dealerships now, they had heard about us. And at the time, they only had, I think, 12 dealerships at the time. I guess that decision a long time ago, I went out on faith. It's still, that's never changed. Presented a challenge, the juice worth the squeeze. That's the first question you ask yourself. And then, a lot of prayer about it. And it felt right. This big customer came in and asked us to come in. They wanted to talk to us about it. And they heard about it. And they ask a lot of questions and they're very curious about it. Anyway, we're in half of their stores. We've formed a partnership with them and it's going great. So
Awesome.
diversifying, always just keep your eyes open for opportunities to show up.
Exactly what I just wrote this down, opportunities. And you mentioned opportunities. And I kind of tell people this too, that sometimes opportunities come up and we think, oh, there'll be another opportunity later. But in some cases, it might not ever come up again.
That's right.
It seems like you were there. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were there and you had this opportunity, but you already had in your mind to take advantage of what maybe God was giving you. Is that?
Amen. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a no person anyway. I've always been a yes person. A lot of the people in my company are the same way. They're all yes people. Sometimes it hurts us, because we get people need help with something and they either can't quite, they're in a tight deal, whether it be a dealership or, whatever the scenario is. It doesn't really matter. We can go into 50 conversations about scenarios, but I love that the people in our company, they have a good heart and they're yes people. So I think if you're a yes person and you always look for opportunities and you really have to meditate and pray on it. Ask our Savior and our Creator, listen, is this is this where you want me to go? And ultimately, what you do down that road, you're going to have to answer for it, whether it's good or bad. So I think it's check your attitude first. What is your motive? What's your motives and gonna and maybe go in that direction. And my motive, honestly, it was great that we landed a double deal there. That was incredible. It was a huge bump in revenue for the company. I started out saying no. I
Yeah.
realized after this guy asked me for like the fifth time that maybe God wants me to do this, and he hasn't asked anyone else yet, because no one else has said yes. So he keeps coming back to me. So maybe I should really consider this, right? And so that yes man part of me started to come out, and anyway, turned out to be a beautiful thing, and it actually threw big doors open for our future, and that diversification into the detail world has propelled us to places where I didn't really realize where we would end up, and we're still growing.
You kind of already touched on a little bit of this about recommendations for PDR businesses, but what for a business looking to grow do you have any recommendation?
Yes, you. I've got to definitely recognize you, James, because I was paying a ridiculous amount of money to Google every month and wasn't getting a fraction of the results that I'm getting when you and I connected. I think the first day you turned it on, I had as many calls in 24 hours that I think I had in 6 weeks my way. I never really want to tell you all that because I don't want my rates to go up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk
No,
about that later. Yeah.
no, we won't.
I appreciate that.
I mean, but I just think that, I wanted to take this opportunity though and I hope your viewers see it. Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of people in the aspect of supporting business, and I don't think I've ever met anyone that is as honest and hardworking and as good at communicating as you are. And I just want to take a second to thank you so much because you've actually reignited some fire in me in the hope department for the future of our company because we lost our son. Our oldest son. When I started working on my own, uh, Tyler was Tyler was 3 years old back in August. We lost him, and he had been with us for 8 years. He went from a 3-year-old to an 8-year, beautiful, awesome dent technician. And the outpour from customers and people has just been incredible. So yeah, I lost a lot of hope, a lot of direction. But you know what? We have so many beautiful people in our system that work for us that the company never lost a beat. I don't think I worked for 6 months. I couldn't. I never stopped doing business by phone. I just couldn't go out and actually do much. People brought the cars to my house. I fixed in my garage at home, but we poured so much into our family business, and he was the future. He's no longer here, but he poured into his younger brother and trained him for 2 years, and he is. Like I said, what he did yesterday, helping that police officer, all of the state police in Virginia go through that one place, and we do all their work. This one state trooper, got hung having to pay for it out of his pocket, and just Dylan just showed and reflected out just the love that we pour into what we do here at Virginia Dent. And we're more than just a company that does dents. So to have you in our support system to help us advance to new places and come up with more creative ways to get our name out and just help more people and serve. We consider you like a big part of this family, and I've never met you face to face. It's just you being a veteran is enough for me. And then everything else that I've learned in the last few months working with you. How long has it been now? A year, maybe a year.
About a year.
So I just thank you for that. So it's been tough, but dealing with seeing how strong our support was from our own family that was in the business, and then having yourself having switches to turn on and turn off in different areas where we need things worked. I mean, you're like the Oz behind the curtain. You seem to make it work. The good Oz, not the bad one.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But I'm just what I'm saying though is that you're a part of several people that have been holding my wife and myself up, and long enough to where we were able to gather ourselves back together, and we can actually get back to what might be a new normal for us. But hope and dreams have come back now,
Mm.
which really that part withered away when we lost Tyler. But I will say this, I'll just tell you how special the people are in our company. And I'm not just saying it because this is my son. So my brother-in-law's in it too. Monday before Tyler passed away, he passed away on Saturday, August 24th. Monday, he was at a very prestigious dealership in Richmond doing work, and Dylan was helping him. They were working together. And Dylan was pushing a dent, and every dent guy out there knows what it's like when you're in the middle of pushing a dent, you're in deep concentration. And Dylan said he felt a hand on his back, and he turned around, and it was his brother. It was Tyler. And he said, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you and how much I love you, and gave him a big hug. Just amazing. I think God put that on Tyler's heart. I mean, the Holy Spirit really works in ways we just can never explain. Dylan needed that. Dylan really needed that, because who knew what the next Monday was going to be like? Who knew what 5, 6 days later was going to be like? Tyler didn't know. So that's just beautiful, and we've been so blessed and fortunate.
You mentioned earlier, well, in a different conversation, and I wanted to touch on this because I think you mentioned how important it was to you that at some point that you had a mentor who kind of helped you and guided you certain directions. Do you want to talk about that? Now, in
Oh,
my past, I've seen how important just having that one person could be.
oh gosh. Yeah. If you can ever, I don't care what career you're in, if you're listening to this podcast, and out there and you own a business, or you're in a position where you're very wise at what you do, if you can pour into someone else like that guy poured, like Randy Duzier poured into me, what you might be doing for somebody is you could be changing their lives and the people around them, their families, charities that we're able to give to, and the power that moves through all of the people after what you do for someone is incredible. And you'll never know it. You may not ever know it.
Mm.
And I made a call to Randy recently. He's in his 70s, and he owned 5 major franchises, was in I was just saying, he was in the Dent Wizard business a long time ago. He was far out of the business when I learned from him. He had been out for years. Sold his 5 franchises. We had a major hailstorm in a part of Virginia where we serviced every dealership in the area. We didn't know how in the world we're going to handle it. It's just like a handful of us. All of a sudden, we thought we had a good business. James, we thought we had something, right? We
Yeah.
thought, oh, wow, we look at what we've done. We've got all these dealerships, and all of a sudden this happens, and there's 3, 4, 5,000 cars that have hail damage everywhere. And
Oh,
now all of a sudden we're thinking like, what is big? We really realized that we're not equipped with the ability to handle this. We were blindsided. So this guy comes into town. He had 32 dent guys in Pennsylvania doing big hailstorm up north. He got tipped off that there was a hailstorm in Virginia. He came down and went knocking on dealership doors. And every single one of them told him the same thing. I didn't know that. He's the one that told me this. He said every time I went into the door and went to the manager to talk to him, he said, no, thank you. They would always say, no, thank you. We're using Virginia Dent. And he was just like, but after about the fourth one, he realized, he got to the Chevrolet dealership and he said, listen, he said, we do major hailstorms. And like, no, they stopped him and said, no, we're using Virginia Dent. He said it was the fourth or fifth dealership that told him that. And he said, look, where are these guys? Like, I want to see them. I want to meet them because they must be good at what they do. Well, they were right up there in the body shop. So he tromped up there and went to the body shop and met my brother. My brother called me immediately and said, Jarrett, you need to come over here and you need to meet this guy. He said, he might be the answer. I go down there, I meet him. And, I'm very skittish about this because this is a big deal, right? And I didn't want somebody to pull a carpet out from under us.
yeah.
And so I'm looking this guy in the eye hard and measuring every movement, whether I can trust this guy or not. So he tells me I've got over 30 guys up in Pennsylvania. They're wrapping up a storm right now. I can have them down here to help you. I can have a handful of them tomorrow. I'm thinking, wow, we need this. And so I basically just, I asked them a few questions, kind of like confidential stuff. Number one on the list is we're gonna run this through my company or yours. And when he paused for a second, and it almost looked like he had admiration on his face. It was strange. I guess I caught him off guard.
Mm.
I don't know if that was what I don't mean to sound. It's not meant to sound cocky or like overconfident or anything like that. It's just that's the look he had on his face. Like I
Yeah.
must have said something right. He said he tilted his head aside and he thought about it for a second. He said, "I'll tell you what, we'll run it through your books." And right then, I knew I could trust him. And so he started pouring into me, brought his guys down. We set them all up. He coached me on how to set it all up. Here we are. Gosh, that was in probably 2007, 2008. And we've done over 30 deals since then. Sometimes I'll call him just to come back and hang out with me while we're doing them. But I still love to have him around
Yeah.
just because it's like he did something for us by taking the time at that moment. He made a decision in a fork in the road where he went in a way where he actually changed that didn't change my life, but he really added a lot to it. In a way, we diversified into brokerage too. So we can broker deals with hail insurance companies, body shops, large deals with body shops, large deals with dealerships. We're capable of doing all of it, which is a very rare thing. If you ever have a chance to mentor somebody or someone mentor you, listen to them, but make sure you know who you're dealing with the right way. There are some people out there that might take advantage of you. He's
Yeah.
certainly not one. And we were very blessed to be connected with him in that moment. So everything went smooth, and it did it again the next year and a couple of years later. And and it's just been, our network grew tremendously. He didn't try to hide anything from us as far as the people he had. We just really just kind of got to know everybody. And his network was, just kind of, we all just started having the same network. It's been great. So
Yeah. Wow.
we met some wonderful people along the way.
Yeah, that's a powerful lesson. Well, we've heard a lot of awesome wisdom and thoughts from you. I mean, any final things you'd like to add or any tips or anything else before we sign off?
I would say, first off, if you listen to this podcast, I want to compliment you and say how well how awesome our experience has been with you, James, and I appreciate that everything you've done for us. You really kind of made opportunities create opportunities, and we have new doors that we didn't know were possible. We haven't even opened some of them yet. We're on our way. Get organized. Get yourself someone like James here, and I just think that keep your faith, believe in our creator and be thankful that we have a savior who died for our sins. And, stay humble no matter how big you get. Take an opportunity to mentor someone when you can and listen when someone mentors you. But always keep that strong line where, your radar has to be good.
Yeah.
And that radar is built by Christ. So
Yeah.
if he gives that, if the Holy Spirit's living in you, you're going to know whether you're on the right road or not.
That's great. Well, what's the best way for people to connect with you to learn more about your business or if they need your help specifically?
I would say to go to our website, virginiadent.com. Really nice site set up by somebody I know. Thank you for that. If anybody would like to reach us, they can go to virginiadent.com, and that's a direct email link to me. Our phone number is posted there as well. It's a simple site, virginiadent.com, easy to find, and we're easy to reach. And we can even do a bot chat with us too.
Yeah.
Nice little bot chat comes directly to us.
Well, thanks so much, Jarrett, for your time and joining me today. And I really do appreciate all your wisdom and sharing some really poignant moments with us and
Yeah.
it's
I
from
mean,
your family. So I really appreciate all that. And I think people out there will too. So once again, thank you and take care, everybody, and God bless.
God bless. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.